Watching the tide.
But I think you guys he almost has a documentary about Stone in and then they desperately want it and realize I don't know if you have it.
Are you coming into the city?
I do. I can take a train. Stephanie and Tina slept in my house last night. We drove in today. We were going to take a train and then
I don't have your number.
310? Time to start.
We just followed.
Stephanie. Steven.
Okay, 310. And then I'll text you tomorrow. And then, yeah, let's keep it track.
Yeah, I'm like,
I always like,
I'm already isolated. I'm like,
sleep over at night. It's my daughter's at open right here. She knows her room is like, she knows that her room is off to the guest room. I gotta leave right over there. My nurse Pat, I'm gonna tell you.
back there. You want to go back there and knock? Yeah. I don't know if I feel like I should. Yeah, I feel like Steven.
Where's Stephanie and where are they?
Say it again?
Where are they? Because they should start.
Say it one more time.
They should. Oh, there it is.
Yeah, they
I guess they're still out. Okay. Yay!
5-8. Thank you so much for coming. We're not going to discuss 5 topics for 8 minutes, but it's going to be similar to that.
Cocktails!
I don't know.
Cocktails!
I don't know if there's going to be singing. There's 2 hosts. There's 2, maybe more than that. There's plenty of guests.
Plenty of guests.
Plenty of guests.
Live audience.
Live audience. I don't think we're going to be singing. There will be curse words for sure. And tonight, it's going to be as many cocktails as you deem necessary. So, before we start, I just want to, acknowledge the space. I want to say thank you to KGB. And the bar, as you've seen, is over there. Please avail yourselves of that. As many cocktails as we deem necessary. Please tip the bartenders. The exits are that away and that away. You can see them because they have the word exit written over them in red letters. And the bathroom is on this side. There's also bathrooms out the back if you go upstairs. There's bathrooms there as well.
Hi.
Okay. Hi.
How you doing?
I'm okay.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not okay. I'm not okay, but I'm okay. Nobody's okay.
No one's okay.
No one's okay.
Nothing's okay.
How are you?
I'm okay.
Okay.
It's interesting you said the exits because I'm training myself now in the old way that I was trained years and years ago to anytime you walk into a public space, know where the exits are and how important that is in this moment and from here on out, because you want to be able to make a choice if something erupts to get yourself out of there. If you can help and it's safe and it's reasonable, obviously help, but I think we're going to see a lot of societal clashing.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
I also want to take a minute to acknowledge the people watching on the live stream, which is hopefully working.
Hopefully it's okay.
I turned it on early, so it was like one of those things, you turn on the DOJ video and there's just like the podium's just there, and you're like, where's this fucking Merrick Garland? And,
He still hasn't shown up. He's nowhere to be found.
We're still waiting, aren't we?
We're still waiting on Merrick Garland.
He's crying.
He's crying.
He saw the shadow, so we have to wait 4 more years for the
Yeah.
So,
pretty much. Yeah. All right. So listen, we've got people we want to get to tonight.
Yes.
You guys hear us a lot of the time, but tonight we really, this was supposed to be a celebration, or we joked about it not being.
Yeah.
I don't know that we ever allowed ourselves to feel this outcome.
No.
And so, I'll just be honest with you, I haven't cried yet. I haven't. I almost projectile vomited for about 24 hours, but I even was able to keep that at bay. And I'm in like a survival mode for myself, personality-wise, that I really don't like. So I'm gonna have to figure out how to be in a survival mode that I myself can tolerate, let alone my friends and family. We were with a friend last night, and I'm like, or this morning, I'm talking to her about towels for like, if you just do the towels, I don't know, maybe not here, but over there. And I'm like, and then I just like, oh my God, I'm over functioning to the degree of whether towels are here or 6 inches over to the left. Like, so.
But that's
my coping. That's my thing of like, I'm just going to figure out every single thing and try to stay in control. And I don't think that's helpful. I gotta find another gear.
I think though that it's important to do those little things. Like I remember Nabokov writing about how, always shave every day, because you don't know, the next day you might not be able to do it for 6 months because you might have to run away from your country or something like that. Which is what happened to Nabokov's dad, but to do the little thing, and I don't want to bring it down like at that level, but like doing the little things like that, it's important, I think, because it's something you can control.
Yeah.
But nobody knows the answers really to what's happening.
No.
So that's part of the reason why we're here and what we're going to talk about tonight, I think, is to try to arrive at some answers together. So.
Or maybe just some solid ground for ourselves, It's kind of solid ground we can build for ourselves as individuals.
Yeah.
Since the whole world just got ripped out from underneath everything.
I still.
Opium.
Hey, yeah, we're not a hopium crew, but
Yeah.
but Coke. Oh, with a C.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Hopium.
Opium is available at the bar.
Yeah. Or maybe down the street and around the corner. All right, so let's get to our first guest. Do you want to do that? Or do you have one more
something
thing?
else.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
Oh,
yeah,
pardon
yeah.
me.
Oh, no. I just, I was thinking about, and you have something you want to say.
I don't remember.
I do.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you for remembering.
It's okay. So we drove in. We were going to take the train down from New Paltz, and we didn't. We drove to New Jersey first to see our son, and then we came in that way. And see, I might cry during this part, so bear with me.
Okay.
And no, and I'm glad we did, because it really drove home. Coming down to New York from upstate kind of is like, blah, whatever. You're already in New York State, and you don't see anything. Coming in from New Jersey, you see everything. You're approaching it. You see the skyline, the Statue of Liberty's there, And I took a picture of it, and it really looked in the picture like she was just going, fuck you.
Yeah, I did. That picture's amazing. Yeah.
She's
like,
and it sort of drove home the point that we're in New York, and we're in New York for a reason, I think, and then okay, so the Holland Tunnel, we went in through the Holland Tunnel. I do that Nunzio Ciccarelli voice, right?
Yeah.
So Nunzio, my great-grandfather was named Nunzio, which is why I chose the name, but he built the fucking Holland Tunnel. He was one of the people that built that.
Wow.
And, and the Statue of Liberty is there, and this is, we have equity in this place, right? We have equity here. And that's the thing that they can't take away. And, we're staying in Chinatown in a hotel. You walk around, and there's so many people there. There's people, I've been here for, 3 hours. I've heard 17 different languages, even in the elevator in the hotel. I mean, people, all these, just so many people working and operating and functioning and being and imbibing the city with so much energy. And it's the things that are great, and it's the things they don't like. It's diversity, it's equity, and it's inclusivity. And it's the DEI, and they shit on that. But I celebrate that. And no place is better to celebrate it than here. Right? So, in that sense, New York City, is America. Not because it's better, because we're coastal elites, although it is but because it embodies all of that. It embodies the diversity. I forgot about Ellis Island we tried, right? This is the place where people came first. This is where you go when you're coming here. And, and that's not something that these fuckers are going to take away no matter what happens, I'm Italian, which means relatively late in the arrival.
Yeah.
But my great-grandfather was building the Holland Tunnel while Trump's grandfather was still in the brothel in Montreal or whatever.
No, it was in Vancouver. Yeah.
Wherever it wasn't here, was it? So that's what I wanted to say. I wanted to bring it, kind of back home to New York.
Nice.
And the other thing that we were talking about before was that tomorrow is Veterans Day.
Oh, God, I did have something to say.
See?
Yeah. So thank you for saying all that. I got really stopped when I realized, this wasn't the show we thought in terms of the vibe and everything.
No.
But we're so grateful that it's happening, and I found myself in a place of gratitude to be able to be here. I tried to meet everybody that's here live. If I haven't met you yet, then after. So I kind of knew, okay, this is gonna be good. We're gonna be with our community and everything, and we're gonna be here on Veterans Day. And that was close when I was like, oh, I don't know if you guys are having those feelings, but since Tuesday, I'm just walking around, okay, this is and then it's like, whack, I get hit with not just the grief of it. Maybe this is a part of grief, but just oof, it just, oh shit. And, oh yeah, we're here now. And I think about this weekend and we were so excited because we had this extra day. Tomorrow was a holiday, so people could come in Sunday when we were planning it without it connecting to me. It's Veterans Day. And now all I can think about are all of the lives that were sacrificed and that they gave themselves for freedom and how important freedom was to this nation, that we've said we will sacrifice our sons and daughters in order to keep this freedom. And those motherfuckers don't care about any of that and threw all of that away.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then I get really angry and I start talking about towels. And so, I think these are just, but I don't want to lose sight of that. And I don't want to feel like all of that sacrifice and even folks that, made it through, especially our warriors, our soldiers that lived through that, and the families, that was all for nothing. What it was for, now we realize how delicate this whole thing is. It's so fragile.
Yeah.
And it could have ended 20 years ago, 40 years ago, 80 years ago. We did have these points in time where we didn't have to have it extended as long as we had, our country. And so I want to make sure I always reflect, and I'm grateful for everybody who did lay it all on the line for us to have it for as long as we did.
Yeah.
And now we're facing whatever this is we're facing. And it's,
Here.
Here we are.
I mean, that's another thing that's horrifying, is that we're going to have the 250th and that motherfucker's going to be president for it. Well, him or President Couchfucker will probably be in there. I don't know. It's it really does. It makes me want to believe in ghosts and in collective stuff, because the thing is, I mean, we did beat the Nazis once before,
We did.
Yeah.
And there's always Mother Nature. Her aim hasn't been so great, Somehow, it kind of went around the people. But she'll show up eventually.
I like to think so.
I would like to think so.
I do like to think so.
Hate seems to pickle people.
It does.
It pickles their insides, and they last for far too long.
It does.
Yeah.
I just want to see if there's something else I wanted to talk about. Yeah. No, this is just we want to talk to guests about this stuff.
Yeah, we do.
Because I want answers to my questions, and I have questions. So our first guest, all of you know, of course, because she's one of the foremost scholars and academics who study fascism, which has been very important forever, but for the last 4 years, and is even more important somehow now. And she wrote this wonderful book called Strongman: Mussolini to the Present, which I encourage everybody to read if you have not done so. So, Ruth Ben-Ghiat, welcome.
I'm Ed McMahon. I'm just going to keep moving down. Keep moving down. Oh, really? I don't kind of want to do that.
If this were really the Carson show, this would be the thing where the company would bomb and he would just dance and then he would walk. It would be one of those kinds of things. So, yeah. I guess what I want to start with, and really this is the whole thematic thing, is that there's two polar outcomes that we're looking at, and I think everybody, maybe not everybody, because some people don't even know that Election Day happened, but everybody in this room certainly has probably been toggling between these two outcomes. So it's either in your mind you're like, okay, well, the dollar is going to collapse and it's going to be crypto, and then the food supply is going to stop because there's no more migrants to till the fields, and we're all going to be neo-feudalists and serfs under King Elon or whatever. And that's the first, and then you're just like, we'll get them at the midterms, whatever. But I don't know that either one of those things is what's going to happen. What's going to happen is probably somewhere in between. So that's my first question: is where are you on this spectrum? Where should we be? How should we frame it? I guess how should we be thinking about this?
Thanks for having me.
Yes, welcome.
And starting with such a small question.
Yeah.
I don't know. There's what's going to happen, and then there's the pace at which it could happen. And one of the things that's very notable is we know what they would like to do because they've been telling us in enormous detail. And Project 2025 published in enormous detail the whole manuals of what they want to do. Now, they did that as a kind of conditioning of people to accept these heinous things. They, like a mass deportation of, I mean, every time I see this number of 15 million, which is not very practical, it's like emptying out the entire population of Sweden or Bolivia or Haiti or Indonesia. It's beyond comprehension what that would mean. And but think about, like, if you just write that all the time, it normalizes it. So we know a lot about what they'd like to do. And they will try to do some of it. And Trump is a man of spectacles, of authoritarian spectacles. He's a showman. And so, you know, there will be things, and Bannon is back there. All the villains are back. And so they're going to do things at the beginning that will show that they're in charge, that they mean business, showy things. And then they're doing a lot that's behind the scenes, of course, like the real stuff that they want, the things to do with Putin and the other things are not going to be showy. But for example, they've made a big deal about, you know, one of the guiding principles is going to be retribution and revenge. And this is a specialty of these strongmen I study. Their grievances, and then when they get power, even if they're in power, if like Erdogan in Turkey, he was consolidating his power, and then there was a coup attempt against him, and that occasioned the crackdown. And so he said, this coup against me is a gift from God. Like, who says that? He says it because it allowed him to do this revenge that's been going on for almost 10 years now. It's incredible. So you can expect there'll be movement toward the weaponization of government. Remember the Jim Jordan sham subcommittee on the against the weaponization? That is what the kind of thing, it's all like projection. It's what I call the upside down world of authoritarianism. So they will weaponize the government in the service of these vanity projects, but which are not just vanity, they're going to wreck lives. And they'll just do some showy movement toward setting up committees to investigate enemies of the state, which are the Democratic opposition. How far they'll get with that is just totally unknown. It's unknown. But I would expect that kind of thing. But you know, I've been telling my newsletter, I've been writing my newsletter, my Substack newsletter, that, you know, some of us right now, it's a very special moment. We're still processing this. Some of us are looking back, full of blame, of who are we blaming, how did this happen, angry at this person or that person. Others are in the future, what's going to happen? What's going to happen to me? What's going to happen to my community? But in a way, the best place to be, in a sense, is in the present right now, because we need to heal. We need to process this, and we need to check in with our loved ones, our communities, because basically the way I see this whole campaign of Harris and Walz, it didn't come out the way we wanted, that's for sure. But nobody can take away from us all the mobilizing, all the connections, all the experiences, all the discoveries that we gained during this time. And so that can stay with us, and it can help us to build a pro-democracy movement. So I'm trying to have that kind of, but we have to be in shape, mentally, physically, emotionally, to be resilient because this is a long-term game. That's what we know about autocracy. It's long. You never know. I mean, he could flame out and then in 4 years there's a backlash. Who knows? But we have to be resilient, and that's why I think it's important to be grounded. It hasn't even been a week.
Yeah.
Every day is like 5 days.
Yeah.
And
It's like dog years. Yeah.
yeah, it's interesting. I'll just share that. So in 2017, in 16, I was on the nose. I predicted, so then when Trump was elected, I predicted almost everything he was going to do. I also predicted that he wouldn't leave office quietly. I was just on it. This time, I was kind of fighting with myself, and actually, many months ago, I started to feel like really sad, like grieving when I was like walking in the woods and stuff. And I kind of knew why I was sad, but I wanted to be positive. Then Harris happened, and the joy and hope happened. And I know that those are very, very important. Joy and hope are actually important political strategies. I wrote about this in my book. So I was like, okay, I'm not going to be sad. There's this. This is hopeful. But I see why I was so sad. I was like pre-grieving in a way for all that was to come. So I'm remembering that now.
Yeah.
And that's also, I'm mentioning this because these are profound feelings that we have, and we have to sit with them. Because we all were like, what can I do now? I got to do something now. That's not really, it can feel helpful, but it's not helpful. It's not strategic.
Yeah.
So I'll stop there.
Yeah. No, I
Nice.
it's also, you know, knowing what he was going to do before everybody. You've been a Cassandra for a while now,
Yeah.
which is exhausting,
It's a curse.
and you know, it literally is. I mean, in the mythology anyway. You know, yeah. The one question that I have, though, I mean, often or usually, I think when these autocracies take over, it's quickly a coup, and then boom, somebody's there, right? And they consolidate power, but they're there. We have 2 months head start in a sense. It's almost like hide and go seek, right? So I was thinking about it today, like how are we going to frame this? What's the best way to approach it? And you know, in terms of preparedness, and there's a difference between panic and preparedness. But I think what I ended on, and I want to know your thoughts on this. Just you know what we should be doing. But I don't want it to be July and to think to myself, God damn it, I wish I did that in November. So I feel like that's a good frame, I think, to kind of think about this. Like, what's something that I wish I had done that I know I will have wished that I did before? But what do you think about that, about the head start? And
Yeah, I mean, I've always been, when I've been doing my inventory of the things that, and if you don't know, my specialty, I'm not a US historian at all. My specialty is, you know, global autocracy, and then I turn that lens on the US. And so I look at the system like, you know, what is really a problem, such as the Electoral College, right? Most people look at the Electoral College and just because it's elitist, they don't like it. I look at it through the eyes of autocrats. Anytime you invest just a few people with enormous power, those people, it's the people you study too. Those people,
That's the gangsters.
yeah, are
Yeah,
vulnerable
it
to gangsters,
Yep.
to
That's
being
right.
pressured.
That's right.
And so that's how I look at things. So I also really, really didn't like, and I've said it many times, the long time in between the election and the inauguration. I've always, even before January 6th happened, I was like, this doesn't sound like a good idea. And in fact, other countries don't have this. But now I'm like, thank God we have these months, because we can do, okay, right now we gotta, you know, get rebalanced and grounded and all that, but then we can prepare. Now, how can we prepare? Goes back to what I was saying before. we have networks, we have community, we can embed further in our communities. We know from the history of authoritarianism that networks, informal networks, organizations, bridge building, there's a world of bridge building organizations in America, and we don't hear about them because the media doesn't cover them. But they're there, they're available to us. So we do that outreach, and we can kind of shore up our relationships. That we have time to do, because we will need them when this starts. We will need them for our social fabric. So that's just one thing. But now I'm really glad we have this time.
Yeah, yeah.
After complaining about it for years.
If this was a movie, it would end by Kamala Harris not certifying the vote. But
Okay,
unfortunately, it's not.
so my question for you is, in studying these around the world, and studying them going back, sometimes quite a ways in time, but also stuff more recent, like Berlusconi being out and then, being fraud convicted, and then he's back, really mimicking sort of what we're facing here. How quick does it go? So he's got such power now. I don't think he's timid. The only thing I'm thinking, I don't really want to talk about this guy. I just want to talk about in terms of our preparedness. That maybe there's so many options on the table of what it's going to look like. It could even look like, okay, I said all that to get into the election, but now I'm just going to adopt these policies over here that sound like it's going to make me look great for Kamala Harris. Yeah, there's just such lunacy, as well as a very clear strategic plan was put in writing. So when there's unlimited power, even though it's not a coup, it's going to behave like a coup, because he's getting in there, everything's getting, the stated goal is rip it all apart, and the Supreme Court is in the pocket.
Yeah, he has immunity.
He has immunity.
Yeah.
In that scenario, how fast can it just go?
Well, this is where, at the beginning, they had this. In fact, the so-called ban on Muslim travel in 2017.
Right.
It was one of only 100. Sorry, it was one of 100 executive orders that Miller and Bannon prepared, but they couldn't do it. So now they've got a slew of executive orders, and I could imagine Trump trying to declare some kind of state of emergency, because one of the things I'm most worried about, which speaks to if they would do something like the Blitzkrieg again, right? That's Bannon's thing. You strike the state. It's a coup it's a different kind of authoritarian action. That by using the language of the enemy within, and by speculating that he would like to use the military, I'm not saying the military would agree to this, but he's declaring war on the American people. That's what the enemy within stuff is about. And he's also set up a thing that authoritarians need, which is the states getting people into a state of existential dread. That these enemies, whether they're immigrants eating cats and dogs, the radical left and the Marxists who are going to have revolution against us, all the things you can fill in the blanks. He's laying the basis. It doesn't have to be him. It could be Russ Vought and these other villains. Laying the basis to try and have a justification to declare a state of emergency because there's a war on. The war is against the enemy within. Now, whether that's going to happen, I do not know, but that's how they think. That is exactly how they think. So you could see things like that.
It's just abuse.
Abuse. Yeah. So, I mean, he has the power and the immunity and the alliances to. Well, see, Project 2025, the code word is day one.
Right.
They've had this code word for a long time, and it's all over their documents. Trump uses it. When he said, I want to be a dictator on day one.
And it was cute about it?
The dictator part, but it's the day one. Day one is the code word. That the army, which is what the bureaucratic, the purges of civil servants, and the politically vetted new cadres of, bureaucrats. They're supposed to deploy, and they call them an army in the Project 2025 handbooks. They're going to deploy on day one. Now, what does that mean? How are they going to deploy? You could have mass firing, and people have to leave their offices, and then what are they going to be waiting there with like hats on to come in? I do not know. But so there's the rhetoric, and then there's the implementation, and the implementation is messy. And it may not work, but just keep an eye on this day one business, because that's the code word.
That's the stand back and stand by this
Yeah.
time around. It's a, I don't have nothing to do with Project 2025. I'm gonna do all this on day one.
It's day one.
Sitting out the code. So like, oh, he's with us. It's all good.
And he's always been like that from when he accepted the nomination back in 2016, when he was inaugurated. It was all about, from this day on, this will end. It's the authoritarian rhetoric. He loves to pronounce the I will be doing this as of this day. So
in 2 weeks.
But the last thing I'll say is that it's not the joke, because it's not funny. But so Trump has actually no interest in governing. None. No authoritarians have any interest in governing, as we understand it in a democracy. What they want to do is get loyalty, persecute their enemies, and use public office to make money off of the state. So they're not interested in governing. And there's a shit show always behind the scenes, total ineptitude, total incompetence. But that comes later.
Great.
So great, we have that to look forward to. Thanks for that.
Before or after RFK dismantles the. I was going to say, just to, and thank you for getting into the detail of all that. I think all this stuff is important, and it's important to hear. I mean, the one thing, yeah. I mean, just to throw hope out there, and not that because again, we don't know what's going to happen. They're not like, remember when they stopped at the guy on the airplane because he had the bomb in his shoe? Yeah, and I remember the comedian Jake Johansson talking about that guy. He was like, yeah, I don't think that was one of their top guys. I don't think it's like the best guy. And I feel like this, most of the people who were really good at what they did are gone. Like they're not that they're not competent, but there's not, relatively speaking, there's not that many people. And we do have enormous forces on our side. They don't have they have the leverage of power for a little while. But they don't have all the money. They don't have all the power. They don't have Leonard Leo can, create whatever Teneo bullshit he wants and try to change the culture, but nobody wants to watch any movies that he makes. It's just never going to happen.
I just will say, but we are all still taking our shoes off at the airport from that one incompetent guy.
Yeah.
So it's a balancing act of, and yet it's affecting every single traveler's life since.
Yeah.
And it doesn't make any sense, but this is now how our whole world has been shifted, and we are the ones having the inconvenience or being asked to actually do something about the incompetent fool. Right?
Yeah, the only thing I would say, when I was talking about the incompetence, that actually is something that does authoritarians in over the long run. So other countries have multi-party systems, and on the one hand, they can get together, these other parties, and oppose an autocrat. But an autocrat can also kind of divide and conquer. We have one giant party, which is the Democratic Party, which will now be the opposition. And nobody can make that party disappear. That's just not going to happen. They're not going to all be put in jail. It's just not going to become a one-party state. So this is to speak to the optimism that Greg is expressing. It's not going to be Nazi Germany or fascist Italy. It's just not going to work like that.
At least not for another 2 weeks. But no, that's a good point too, because it is a different system, and that's what I'm saying. It's like, this is what I mean. I go back and forth between these two poles, right?
Yeah.
But I want to get to I want to get to something that you wrote in your book, because there's a whole chapter here called Resistance, which is now suddenly, very relevant. And I found this passage to be enlightening. Strong men use the public sphere to display their power to regiment bodies and minds. Resistance activities reclaim that space from the state and speak back to the government's violence, corruption, and exploitation. Such protests can be joyful, collective occasions, as in the anti-Putin rallies in the winter of 2011 to 2012. They become spaces of warmth and solidarity despite the cold. Protests can also be stark refutations of the leader's claim on the body and soul, as in cases of self-immolation, which draw attention to injustice and call others to do something about it. Not that we want to self-immolate anytime soon, but I think that's a good way to think about it, right?
Yeah, it becomes a fight over the public space. And
Yes.
my favorite, and I tell his story in here, and I also have his art and illustration. My friend, the projection artist Robin Bell, who you may remember, early in the Trump presidency, he projected on the facade of Trump International. And he would drive up in a van, and the most famous one he did, he would pay bribes here.
Yes.
And then he would also, after Trump said that certain African countries were shitholes, he did a whimsical thing where he had poop emojis, and they were flowing down the facade of Trump International Hotel. And so he transformed the whole space. And so then it was interesting, when I interviewed him for my newsletter and went into the book, he said it wasn't the police that chased him away, it was Trump's security. And they would have to beat it in the van. But then the art and the projection would live online and go viral. So I'm mentioning it because he managed to take this hotel, which was a center of self-dealing and all kinds of corruption and the symbol of the gaudy appeal of Trump, and make the whole space, the plaza in a way, into a space of speaking back to power. And so that's what protest can do.
The other part, and this, reading that chapter now, something that I think is important, and I think, again, I don't want to hopium thing, but it's not every little bit counts. That's kind of one of the takeaways of that. And because it is an oppressive system, but every bit of resistance, no matter how small, contributes to the breaking down of the of this authority, because a lot of it is based on image and perception, right? So even the little things like, remember the when they first invaded Ukraine, the older lady that was like, I'm gonna put sunflower seeds in your pocket so when you die there'll be, that didn't cost any, that was one very normal person doing something brave for 5 minutes, and here I am talking about it two and a half years later, and that stuff matters. So in your book you talk about this White Rose group during Germany. It seemed to me that they did stuff like that. What talk a little bit about that is. I think it might be inspiring.
They were college students, and a brother and sister and their friends, and they had grown up thus under Nazism, and they had absorbed the lessons of mass mobilization and propaganda, and they turned those lessons against the Nazis. And it's very interesting, they sent letters, anonymous letters, and there was I think I write in the book that they were in an analog system. I mean, they're in but they were targeting people who were social hubs. They sent these letters to cafe owners, popular bookstore owners, and said, please read it and pass it on, share, right? So they did that. They also left, they would put up, anti-Nazi flyers on walls. They left things in bus stations. They tried to get out these messages in the most visible places in the public sphere, aiming to reach ordinary people. And they actually built a network that was very successful, and then they were infiltrated and exposed, and not infiltrated, but one thing went awry eventually, and they were executed. But they did a lot, and they really had the idea of getting others to share your message, which is very 21st century.
Yeah, it was a good thing, and I think that I don't know. There's that monologue in Andor, which I was going to read, except it's on my phone, so I can't. But the main takeaway from that is that freedom is a natural thing, and tyranny is not. Tyranny requires, a lot of energy to hold it together, because your natural force of everything wants tyranny to not exist, and therefore every little piece, every little thing contributes to something, and eventually the dam breaks, and I like the chapter in the book where everybody dies. That's the best chapter.
That was the best one to write. It was like a relief that they too come to an end, because it's very interesting. You were saying before they're very durable. A lot of these guys like Gaddafi, they're drug addicts. They've got awful personal habits, and then they're just there for decades. They're very robust, like Berlusconi also, very bad habits, but he just never stopped. And Trump is the same. They're durable, and you should never underestimate their ability to survive. Like when that, whatever we're going to call that thing that happened to his ear. So something happened to his ear for sure. So he goes down. Anybody else except a strong man would have gotten off stage to safety really quickly. What does he do? He's a man of image. He's a man of making iconic moments. He gets up, he exposes his whole face and his side of his hand, and then he makes the fight, and he does the fist. And what he was doing was actually having the presence of mind to let his followers, because he tends to his personality cult very, very well at all times. He was letting them know that he was okay, and that he was going to endure, and that he would be there for them no matter what. It was a very interesting reaction.
He knew he was going to do that. Yeah, come on. This guy is incapable of spontaneity like that. But again, I don't want to talk, I don't want to focus on him.
We don't have to.
It really doesn't matter to me. I mean, and I think in the grander scheme of things, it's the stuff of, I'm feeling a little bit more hopeful about maybe finding a way to protest. For me, It's going to be about being on the front lines of my own community, my local community, and doing something helpful there. So I have touch points everywhere where I know I'm actually feeding someone who's hungry, and that feels good, but also that person is on the front lines in a way that I'm not, and I can kind of see where this whole thing is going.
Because there's a playbook for this, and it doesn't always, I mean, in real regimes, like it doesn't always lead to the end of the Putin regime. But there's a lot of lessons in this that we can draw on, because again, we're not going to be in a one-party state. And remember, Putin, it took him many, many years to get the power that he has. And Orban has been in power as long as Hitler now. Putin has been in power as long as Mussolini. At the beginning, things were much more volatile. You could do and say things. You could criticize Putin. There's a lot of protest art in 2000, even 2006. He'd been there 6 years that you certainly couldn't do after. So there's a playbook for this protest, and we have a window to do these things. I think that's the lesson.
They're selling, I think that picture of him is so stupid. They're selling bobblehead. I saw an ad on Twitter for a fucking bobblehead doll with his bloody head on it. I swear to God, I screenshot. I couldn't believe it was a real thing.
Well, we should buy a bunch of those and put a bunch of maxi pads on the head side of put those around in bathrooms all over the place.
Is that
Kotex. Get your Kotex here.
Yeah, if
there's ways. I mean, there's ways to be clever and all of that. So it's nice to think about that safe space, which brings me to thinking about being a writer, being a creator. creative, where are we as creatives? Ruth, you write, not just historian, writer as well. And so if it's okay with everybody, I want to bring up a writer that is with us tonight.
Yes.
And introduce Stephen Beschloss is in the house. Stephen, you want to hear coming up? Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Okay, so I'm just, is this mic on? That's all right, I'll speak loudly. I'm just thrilled that you know, Stephen, so we were talking about this a lot, and everything was looking like it was going awry. Stephen had known about it, and he reached out to me and said, hey, would it be helpful if I came? And I just want to meet some people in real life. Like, you know, we all know each other digitally. It's time to meet, because that was important, and you're so right how important that was, and is, and will remain to be. But also, you know, maybe I can be helpful in some way. So I just want to thank you for acknowledging that there was a community here, and that not only did we have something to offer you as a community, but you had something to share with us. So welcome tonight, Stephen Beschloss.
Thank you, Stephanie. And I think when we first talked, the idea was maybe this was going to be a celebration, right? I think what I said was, I guess it's either a celebration or a funeral. And I, you know, with a few days since the election, I don't think it's a funeral. I'm actually, you know, I've been, I think like everyone, going through heartbreak over what didn't happen, and you know, not being able to embrace those feelings of joyfulness, of happiness, of the possibility of what, you know, Harris Walz administration could be, and instead, you know, having to cope with the fact that, you know, after 8 years where I, like you, have been focusing on the, you know, the danger of Donald Trump, and in my own case, trying to make sense of him and trying to, through writing, to be able to minimize the damage of him and try to help people to figure out, you know, and remember what's right and what's wrong, what's true and what's false, what's normal and what's crazy, because so much of the effort, and you know, since 2016 has been degrading people's capacity to know what's true and what's false.
Right.
And that degradation, I think, has played out in a way that now people have become so accustomed to all the lying and all the inability to know what's really happening that they become more reliant on what the strongman leader says is true. So we're dealing with the consequence of that. But you know, I eventually want to talk about this idea of community, and community at a local level and a state level, because I think it represents the slowing down of what the response will be. And I want to put it for a moment in the context of the climate crisis. So I do a lot of research on the climate crisis, done a lot of writing it, we've done a lot of my work at the university. I've done a lot of projects that have focused on, you know, kind of narratives around climate change and the climate crisis, and specifically stories of survivors of extreme weather events. And I want to talk about two parts of that. Well, one part of that is that for a lot of people, and maybe particularly young people, they look at the idea of the climate crisis as the coming apocalypse, right? And it's this idea that one day you're going to wake up and the world is at an end, right? It's the end of the human species and it's over. And I try to focus around the idea that no, it doesn't all happen in a day. You know, the timing isn't that you wake up and suddenly the whole planet is no longer functioning, but rather that, you know, yes, there may be places that are now too hot, or places that are, you know, too wet, or places that are too dry, and there will be places that are now habitable that will become uninhabitable, and maybe places that are uninhabitable that will become habitable. And that means that the world that we know will be different but it's not the end of the world as we know it. And I think that's important to know. And I think the same sort of, as a metaphor, I think that's what's true in this case too. The world has changed. It won't be the world that we've known, but there still will be pockets of habitability. And in those places of habitability, beautiful things will continue to happen. And I'm, suggesting, first of all, that sense of that it all is going to happen quickly, that's not going to happen. And I learned from the stories of lots of survivors of extreme weather events, who went through the catastrophe of a tornado or a hurricane or a wildfires, floods, and it was people on we studied like 36 people on 5 continents to try to look at things that they had in common, going through that experience, both in the moment of the disaster, but then how their lives changed and how they looked at the future. And one of the things that was so interesting is that pretty consistently people talked about that during the disaster, like right when it was happening, one of the things that they experienced was this togetherness that they felt with their neighbors, and this kind of, frankly, this kind of love that people reached out to them. What can I do? How can I help you? What can we do together that helps you to get through this? And it was, obviously meaningful. It was meaningful in the disaster, but it also began to change the dynamic of, knowing your neighbor, knowing your community, being a part of that, and realizing that there is, that the isolation or the alienation, the disconnection that they may have felt with their community before, literally their next door neighbors, that's changed after that. And so, I look at this as an opportunity to think of this moment in a similar way, and I'm not being unrealistic about the dangers that are ahead, and surely at a national level, I think everyone here is perhaps feeling a kind of powerlessness, which is, what in the world can I do about it? How can I possibly withstand that? And I've taken strength, nourishment, solace already in these days, looking particularly at governors, J.B. Pritzker in Illinois saying, you're coming for our people, you come through me. Let's start there. You have, obviously Gavin Newsom in California has planned a special session to talk about all the ways that they're prepared to oppose any federal actions, and looking at all the lawsuits that they pursued going back to 2017, 2018, 2019, and what they can learn from that. But also, I'm trying to think of who else. Well, there were other
New York.
the locals.
Yeah,
Yeah.
AG, and there was the local.
Well, yeah, I want to.
Yeah,
The
the
Manhattan Borough president,
Yeah.
who made a point of saying, "This is New York. This is a place that has an illustrious tradition of supporting, respecting immigration and immigrants. We have robust programs to support people, whether it's legal help or whether it's other kinds of, community help that's going to be meaningful. And we're not going anywhere. And they're not for our people, without us serving as a bulwark against it. And so I think it's important to understand that, this is not an apocalyptic moment as much as it feels like it is. And there's really an opportunity for not only to look at a state level and community level and maybe even neighborhood levels of people who are already pro-democracy advocates, already trying to do the right thing, have been and will continue to do that, all the Democrats and all the others that have been committed to that. But I think it's an opportunity for all of us to ask, at the most granular level, what can I do with my neighbor? And maybe it's literally my neighbor, or maybe it's that person who is a part of a marginalized community and is at risk in one way or another. And is there something I can do at that most granular individual level, or is there a coalition? Is there an organization? Is there a project? Is there something that can make a difference?
I love that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love that. I think it's, you don't have to feel like we're cut off and floating away, you know? So the connections to make, this is the rebuilding moment. Yeah, it could very well be that the slate just got wiped clean. I don't have the same confidence that you have, Ruth, that there's going to be this other party. I think we're in a one-party moment. It doesn't look good to me. I don't know that, this guy could just say we're not gonna have elections and the folks will go along with it. I think there'll be even bigger clashes coming of like somebody doing the protest and being rounded up and putting in prison for protesting, and then we have this First Amendment, what about your free speech? You got you free speech people. So those to me, those clashes are coming, and I just see, me personally, all the dominoes falling on the side the way they have this whole way. It's just been tipping. I don't know that America remembers where it is in us, how to actually take a stand against that and build. So I think the building itself will create the stand. So if we just invest in building community, invest in your friends, invest in your neighbors, invest in yourself, and just one foot in front of the other, and just know we're at ground zero and we are rebuilding one brick at a time, and that will become the strength against him.
But, just, you're right, but, over 1,000, it was 1,047 national security leaders signed letters very strongly denouncing, Trump and Vance and supporting Harris and Walz. And I don't think all those people are just going to fold. These are people with it. And these aren't the Millie and the Kelly and all those people who work behind the scenes. It was extraordinary that they spoke out, actually. But I don't think, thinking of the lesser people who are still very important, each with their own networks, I don't think all those 1,000 people are going to fold.
We'll see.
Yeah.
I mean, I thought it was really interesting that already in the last days, Jerome Powell, the head of the SEC, stood up and said, he's not driving me out. I'm here, and there are laws about that. I didn't necessarily think of Jerome Powell as our freedom fighter.
Right, yeah.
But we'll take him, and I think it's absolutely right. I mean, is General Milley going to just say nothing? I mean, I think that there are so many people who are looking at this danger and who are going to use the platforms that they have to respond.
I think it's also, I'm told that just him firing all the generals and replacing them is not legal in certain ways either. So it's like in the Lev Parnas documentary when Trump was like, we got to fire the ambassador, and then nobody does anything, and it just weeks go by. He thinks he can just say something and it's going to happen, and it doesn't work that way in some sense. I'm not disagreeing. No, I'm not disagreeing with you.
I just want to keep stay. It's really important to me to stay grounded, and if I'm the annoying pebble in everybody's shoe tonight, that's okay. It's also not illegal for him to do it because he was given immunity.
Right. No. Yes.
So always remember that. We can say it's not legal for him to do these things, but it's also not illegal for him to do it. So where the power is going to be wielded and how much of it, where it's going to be aimed, well, it's just, that's the unknown that we're living through.
I think, you mentioned Ground Zero, and you mentioned the Pebble, and I mentioned New York, and, I was here, my wife and I were here on 9/11. I don't know where she is. Hi, Stephanie. Where are you? Hi. Okay. We were here. We took the subway down, and she watched one of the towers fall. And that was a day. Obviously, it was really awful, but that was a day that I felt kindness here. And
we're all in this together.
Yeah, and it was stuff you don't usually see, like people giving water bottles out on the street. Just people were helping in any way that they could. And I wrote this thing this morning about Dorothy Thompson and, you know, who goes Nazi and all that kind of stuff. And, you know, thank you. The takeaway there, you know, is that who doesn't go Nazi are people that are kind. And I think it's on some level to get down to the granular level that you were talking about and things that we can control. Kindness is the thing that we can control, you know, and it's not easy to be kind this week to people in some ways. Some people I want to not be kind to ever again, frankly. But you know, go ahead.
Yeah, I was just going to say that it's really easy. It's really easy for me to be angry and outraged and frustrated and to act on that and for that to define how I respond to this period. I think it's a thoroughly legitimate response. But I'm also thinking about how personally how I've let Donald Trump get into my head to the extent that all of the outrages on a daily basis seeped in enough and led to sort of a sense of assault, whether it was, you know, his assault or whether it was, you know, all the kind of abuse that I've gotten through social media, people responding to him and otherwise. But the fact is that, you know, I think that part of the effort of this period is to not let him in our heads and to focus on the ways in which, you know, we can, you know, I'll say this in almost as a kind of, you know, tribute to Kamala Harris and her Joyful Warrior campaign, and say, like, you know, let's try to do the right thing and hold on to that sort of sense of decency and kindness and not let the other thing take over. You know, that doesn't mean you ignore what's happened or you treat it lightly or you don't, you know, be aggressive and tough when you need it, but to not let it damage us, essentially. Which is, you know, when that happens, and I've been hearing from a lot of people who are saying, you know, I've had it, you know, I'm in my 70s, I don't know how many years I have left, I'm retiring from politics, you know, I'm exhausted, I'm done, you know, I'm you know, ending my subscriptions, I'm turning off the television, I'm not watching news, I'm not doing all of those things, because that's the way that they feel they can protect themselves. You know, I think that there's a version of this where we can be absolutely engaged in the reality of what's happened, and at the same time kind of keep on the light that says, you know, the victory is to still be decent and kind and compassionate in this period.
Amen.
Wonderful. I was looking at, and then I want to transition for a second, if everyone's okay with that. I was looking at Timothy Snyder, you know, who's what this stuff, and you know, he said, make a list, write down the things that you actually would lie down for, this is my line, right? And treasure those things and understand that never, and keep revisiting that list, pull it out, look at it. Oh yeah, this is the bottom line important thing for me that I'm willing to fight for, and reminding yourself how important that is. You know, whether it's my family, right? Or it's, you know, the future for my daughter, or it's the rule of law for some people. We all have our own thing that calls out a natural activism. So I want to pivot on that in just a second. We have a lot of great people that came tonight. Everybody great came tonight. I appreciate all of you. And some special guests here. So the great Rosanna Arquette is with us tonight. Supporting, part of the show, all of that. Do you want to come and sit down? You want Greg to bring a mic to you?
I wasn't even gonna talk because
whatever you want to share, whatever feelings.
I'm just here to learn always from them, and thank you so much. Scholars. You know, I feel like I'm in school. I'm studying when I listen to you all. How do you all feel?
I'm fucking angry. Broken hearted.
All those feelings I had, I didn't want to watch that night. I just said, wake me when it's over. I just felt this horrible feeling. Woke up, found out what was happening. And I went for 3 days of just like complete sobbing, punching my pillow, screaming in a rage in my pillow, and then this deep sadness and oh my God, for my daughter, the planet, immigrants, like all the things that they're threatening. And what you were saying about like trying to hold, I walked into a store and there were 4 MAGA guys, you know, buying beer and excited about their victory, and my old reactivity was coming up. I just wanted to confront so badly, and I wasn't afraid. I just knew that was not going to move a needle or anything. So I went up and paid, and I was kind, and I was actually buying my friend a bottle of tequila. This is a good tequila, and they said it, and then just as a human being, just thank you. Yeah, was it good? Oh, great. Bye. You know, and leaving the place like that. Anyway, I don't know what the answer is. It's just all you need is love. You know, I'm a hippie kid. I just wish we could get back to that somehow. The anger and rage that he's unleashed in the last, and we're all recovering from 8 years ago, you know, it's just like the last 8 years have been relentlessly hard, even just constantly fighting, even in Congress, like they can't pass anything, all the things, the good things that Biden did, we have to remember, because he really did do a lot of for our country, he did. I don't know the answer. I'm happy to be here in community and hear, you know, wise people help us get through this. And then it's like, try to get to a place where we can bring more love. That's what Kamala was doing, and that's what you were saying, like, that love and positivity was really like, I want that. Can we have that? How do we have that in this? And like, ultimately, love can conquer hate. And so we have to figure out how to do that as much as we can in this time anyway. I'm sorry.
Thank you, Rosanna. Okay, we have some amazing. So we have some other folks. Lou New is in the house. The OG of Twitter.
You want to come up?
Okay.
Yeah, come up here.
I'm trying to not.
Who knew? She.
Trying to not make. Whoa.
Away from the speaker.
I can sit on the floor.
You want to be up here?
Yeah, I'm fine with sitting.
Okay.
Hi, everybody. So I've been gone for a while. I just had to leave the whole political sphere and dive into my circus hobby / passion. So I've been not marinating in the political insanity for a good couple years, and it's been amazing. That's not to say that I didn't follow what was happening and that I'm not like still plugged into what's going on. I do still have a finger on the pulse of what's happening in the country, but focusing on what you're good at and where you can shine light is a great thing for your community and for the country in general. So that's one thing. Do the things that you're good at and the things that make you happy, and it will make you a better person, and it will make you better for your community. So shine your light, do the good things, be nice to people, all of that stuff. It really does make a difference. I advised my dad to turn off all his news notifications. He's 77 and he's like so angry about the election. And I just told him, I was like, you know what, shut off all your notifications and see how that improves your life, because I think it will. So I would say, shut off your notifications and see if it's better. There are a couple sparks of positivity that I want to highlight. We have our first trans member of Congress. So all those freaks who want to harp on bathrooms, well, all those women who are yelling about, oh, no trans people in the bathroom, guess who they have to share a bathroom with now? So that's a good thing. And what a brave woman to run for Congress and win. Missouri, which is, I call it Missouri fondly because my mother-in-law lives there, I have a brother-in-law there. Missouri voted to make abortion legal. The majority of Missourians voted to make abortion legal. That's huge. And in Montana, there is no longer a Republican supermajority in the state legislature, and that's huge too, because that means that Montanans can actually, hopefully, maybe get things done. So there are some sparks of positivity, and they're good things. This whole war on abortion and all that shit. Well, fucking Missouri voted to make abortion legal. So that tells you a lot. Anyways,
Thank you.
Thank you, Lou. Always makes us feel better with the reality of that. We have some other folks.
Do we want to do now? Are we going to break and then come back, or what do you want to do?
I think we'll do this and then we'll turn on some music and we'll all dance and drink. How does that sound?
That's
Because
good.
we have the folks at home. Yeah.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah. Okay.
yeah.
Sandi Bachom. Also in the house. Last that speaker because I made it so crazy. Okay.
Okay, so I just turned 80. And I'm a hippie. And I told people at Occupy Wall Street, I said, we ended a war and we took down 2 presidents without Twitter. So what's your fucking excuse? Right? So, we're too connected. And I'm an addict, I'm a recovering addict, and the endorphins and dopamines go, and I go to the Trump rallies, right? And, but what I do, I'm a journalist, and I was there, I was in Charlottesville, and filmed the guy, Jews Will Not Replace Us, the guy that killed Heather Heyer, just walked right by me, Jews Will Not Replace Us. And I also interview Holocaust survivors, and I asked my friend, Werner Reich, who died a few years ago, and I said, what does that mean? Because it was the Great Replacement theory, but I didn't know at the time what it was. And he said that in Germany, he was in Auschwitz, he was in Theresienstadt, Auschwitz, and Mauthausen, and he said something that just I think about so often. I made a short film about it. He had this great sense of humor, and he used to lecture about his experiences in the Holocaust. And I said, was there any laughter there? And because laughter is a great healing, the greatest drug of all. It releases dopamine and endorphins, which are natural painkillers. It was the way I got to, stopping drinking was by laughter. And he said they had joke sessions every night. And I said, do you remember any of the jokes? And first he said in German, and then he said, I'm happy to be in Auschwitz. Even if I wasn't happy, I'd still be in Auschwitz. So I might as well be happy. And what we're going through now is, I feel it's my job to save fucking democracy with my camera. But what I've done, and my footage was used in a way, yes, because my footage was used by the committee. I filmed the guy reading.
By the committee to investigate January 6th.
Oh yeah, what did I say? Yeah.
Just your footage. I'm just giving credit.
And one of the impeachments. I was there at the end of the day, and I just want to say something about how Trump is going to do this, because I know what he's going to do, and I know how successful he's going to be. But the video that I shot was the end of the day, 4:30 in the afternoon, and this guy comes out and he says, I have a message from the president. And he reads off his phone, and I'd like to know who gave it to him. Mike Pence didn't have the courage. He reads that tweet from 2:24 in the afternoon, but this is 4:30. And then he encouraged them to keep fighting. We the people, demand the truth about because we didn't know at the time, but they had the fake electors and all that going. I was at CPAC with Steve Bannon and Stephen Miller. And Stephen Miller, and this is up on, it's on Twitter.
You're a glutton for punishment, but go ahead.
I have to document, I'm a Getty contributor, And I shoot this stuff, and I've shot thousands of interviews with MAGA people. I go to the line, and people say, oh, you know, how could you do that? And the only way I could do, my first rally was in 2009. Tell me if I'm going too long. In 2019, and I said, I hate this guy so much. I want him dead. I want him in jail. I want him to suffer. And I went up to, there was like, this is when he had 20,000 people at the rallies. And I started talking to this guy, and I said, what do you love about him? And all of a sudden, we were human beings talking to him. Because the phenomenon will be studied for eons of how it happened so fast, right? So I say, why do you love it? Why do you love him? And where do you get your news? Because they all say the same thing. But they completely change. And then I'd say to them afterwards, and this just happened to me a couple of days ago, talking to a QAnon guy, I said, you know, I'm on the other side. And he looked at me like I was, you know, punched him. And I said, but I believe that we're going to have to talk to each other, and we're going to have to listen to each other. And this guy says, thank you. Because all they want is to be heard, like we want to be heard. And so we're, you know, rather than hating them, which, you know, and they're arrogant with their fucking hats and, make America great. What did Margaret Atwood said? She said the first casualties of the oligarch are the true believers. I made a documentary called True Believers, but they're going to be the first ones to suffer, right? So we're going to have to. So anyway, so what Stephen Miller said was that they're going to day one. Everything you say is just I take notes. Day one. So day one, we're going to go into these communities and we're going to arrest all the illegals, and then we're going to take them to the tents where the planes are waiting. And it made it sound like it was going to happen in like a couple of hours. And I thought, who is going to do this arresting? Hitler had an army. He doesn't yet have an army. You know, the Proud Boys, who I put a couple of in jail. You're welcome.
Thank you for your service.
Yeah. Oh, and they're getting out.
They're gonna party.
They're getting out.
I think that's a key point. So I want to bounce off that point of, you know, it is the implementation. It is like, it's all a big fantasy, and they're engaged in this fantasy of this wish fulfillment, which is cruelty, and it's horrifying, and it destroys lives, and yes, all of that. But the time it's going to take to actually marshal the resources to make any of it happen, and the ability to have the executive functioning ability to make any of that happen when they're just also just such disorganized human beings. So that buys us maybe a little bit more time to get more prepared and build our community ourselves.
I was at the airport when they called for the Muslim ban.
Yeah.
We went out to JFK, and 10,000 people showed up. But here's the other problem. There's nobody. I mean, when Trump was elected, I don't know where you were with that, but when he was elected the first time, 20,000 people showed up in front of Trump Tower. And my video's on YouTube. They have 5 people now. You know, I mean, I don't know where, are we beaten down, or, you know, that's the part that scares me the most.
I think we're just everybody's doing, like, I'm
Everyone's
proud of this
processing.
community for doing this, to say we need a space for rational discourse and to check in with one another. And hopefully people are doing that, and that's happening first rather than an explosive emotional response, which is where we started with all of this 8 years ago. Because we hadn't lived through it. Now we have lived through some part of this. I don't believe the biggest part of it. I think that's yet to come. The future is all unknown. But we have that behind us to now say, okay, how am I going to take care of my own well of resources, right? Of my emotional energy, my spiritual self, my physical self, but Ruth was saying, you've got to take care of yourself, and my time, and just my effort, you know, and because it is a long haul. So I think maybe we're all feeling the long haul of it, and the reorientation of it, and just, there's a lot of shock out I want to go on, if that's okay, Sandy, I want to move, because we're limited time in this space.
What time is it? Does anybody know?
Does anybody know the time?
9:28.
Okay. Okay, you have to leave soon.
Yeah.
All right, we're gonna wind down. I want to give one more shout out to somebody who's been a guest on our show and one of our beloved, most recent guests. Nadine is here. Where is she? Where is she? Oh my God, we're taking hi, Nadine over there. Yay, Nadine. So we'll hang out here. We have the space until.
Yeah, we have the space. We have the space until 10, so we can hang and bombard the bar in the meantime.
Meet one another.
We would like to thank Sandi Bachom, and again, documentarian who has the True Believers documentary, Ruth Ben-Ghiat, strongman, also a wonderful Substack. I think it was the first one I subscribed to, called Lucid, which is really great. And Stephen Beschloss, also, you're a fantastic Substack called America, which, whatever your intended meaning, now I think about it as America, what the fuck did you do?
A plan and ode was the original idea, but it's certainly not, it's not one thing, that's for sure.
Exactly. No, it's certainly not. So we want to thank all of you for coming tonight, and yeah, this was really wonderful. I can't believe that. I'm grateful that this happened, and this is an example of a small community thing that we can have happen. So, thank you so much.
Normally we have our outro music.
Yeah.
But instead, maybe we'll just find some music to dance to a little bit.
Oh, we had a good song.
We have a good song.
We can put the music back up.
We can put the music back up. No, not YMCA.
Give me an F.
Oh, thank you, everybody. And thank you to our spouses who supported.
Go writing.
Can you believe it?
So happy to see you.
Thanks for watching, everybody. Good night.
I follow you on everything.